Hello and welcome to I Am International. In the My Journey section today, we have with us a special guest. A dynamic man, I like to call him the jack of all trades. All the way from Nigeria, an accomplished product manager in one of the leading tech firms in the world, none other than Tolu Arogunmati. As we do in the My Journey section, we take a deep dive into the lives of our special guests. No restrictions, no stones left unturned. The key is to figure out what makes them who they are. Now, before we get started, this show is brought to you by Legacy Music, music made for you, Back Pocket, the fun and easy way to give, and the George Legacy Foundation, innovation, growth, and leadership. So, Tolu, walk us through what's going on right now, currently in your life, work, initiatives you're involved with, businesses you started. Kind of just give us an overview of where you are right now, and then we're going to take it all the way back.
So currently, in terms of where I'm at, I am a product manager at IBM. I run 3 product teams there, all of them having different customers, different users, and the expectations on that. Aside from that, I'm also a landlord, so I have to monitor my rental property. Currently, I'm doing a startup with a couple of my friends. It's going to be in the crypto space.
Nice.
We are trying to provide auditing tools for people who are new to the space, looking out for decentralized finance, trying to understand what coins to look at, what tokens to look at. So currently we're working on that. And aside from that, I also run podcasts, one of them about fantasy soccer, and another one just sharing some of my thoughts around life and things that are happening in the world, politics. It's inspired by Last Week Tonight by John Oliver, so one of my favorite shows, so I just make one version.
So, Tolu, let's take it back to this part where I call before you were you. So before
I wasn't born then.
before you're Tolu, Mr. Tesla, the big guy doing it all. Before all of that, take us back to Nigeria, take us back to elementary school.
Yeah.
What type of guy were you? Were you that guy, causing trouble in class? Were you the quiet guy? Were you, the person always trying to sing when the teacher was out of the class? Give us an overview of, where Tolu was at a couple of years ago back home. Tell us a little bit about, family,
Sure.
Certain maybe important things that happened during that, transition. Just kind of give us an overview of that.
Sure. First child of 3 children back in Nigeria. So as you can imagine, you are forced to almost be a co-parent. So that's kind of who I was. I found school was very straightforward for me, especially math and anything that was related to math. I was not necessarily the studious type.
Okay.
Because I felt like things were relatively straightforward, so I didn't have to study.
Okay.
I was pretty playful in school, I'd say. Wasn't very athletic, so I couldn't play sports like that.
Okay.
But I found teachers liked me, and there was something about me that my teachers liked. In general, I'd come to class, do my homework, and just be done with it, and then I'd go play. Obviously, I went to boarding school as well. A lot of people who studied in Nigeria before coming to Canada for the university, most of them went to boarding school. I was one of those.
What boarding school did you go to, and what elementary school did you go to? Just in case we have viewers.
So I went to one of them, Redeemed Christian Church of God schools. So I went to Christ the Redeemer's College in Shagamu, Ogun State. A couple of hours outside Lagos.
Okay.
Instead of primary school, I went to my mother's primary school, Diamond's private school, so she still runs it till today.
Nice.
And then that's kind of how I got to Canada, and then I went to Carleton from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, right now, we know a little bit about Tolu in terms of who he was in elementary school, moving into boarding school. Was there a character change? Because I feel like for most people, boarding school is kind of the defining, one of the most defining sectors of their life. And so, kind of give us an overview going from, the guy who was, has the story changed? Is something different now, or are we still in the same direction?
I mean, I think I'm still as playful as I was in primary school.
Okay.
I changed secondary schools twice. So I went to one Redeem school because my parents felt I should be in day school and I should go to a church school. And then I changed again to another Redeem school, which is Christ Redeemer. So Redeemer's International first, and that. And then after, when I came to Canada, my character changed a little bit compared to then. I think when you're in a different country, you have to adjust.
Yeah.
And so my character certainly changed a little bit. I think I was more playful when I was much younger.
Okay.
I'm still playful now, so imagine how bad it was then.
For sure. So, Tolu, tell us, the journey from, boarding school, now I want to go study in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, picking your program, picking what school you wanted to go, and also just give us an idea on, was it something that was already planned? You didn't know you were already coming to Canada? Was it a thing already, or was it more of like a surprise? You got to final year and your parents were like, hey, would you be down to go? Or you know, the opportunity has arisen. So what kind of is your story in terms of your finding out you were gonna come to Canada, you know, going through the whole process, applying, visa, all of that. Give us an overview and any dramatic or any important stories in that aspect as well you could share with us.
You know, the funny story is, what I knew was a lot of my course mates, or at least my classmates at that time, were going to Covenant.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do the church school again. I didn't want to do that. So that was my primary driver.
Okay, to leave.
I did not want to do church. You know, I didn't want to do church university. I'd already done church schools all the time. So I was determined to not do that. And I also was like, okay, if I'm going to leave Nigeria or not go to church school, where am I going to go? And so I looked into Ghana. I actually applied to Kwame Nkrumah University.
Nice.
I looked into Legon as well. At some point, I went back then. The internet wasn't very stable, so I went saw the encyclopedia. I was like, where is the furthest place I can get from here? And I looked into this. I discovered this place on the map called New Zealand. This tiny little country. And I really looked into it. I was like, Australia, New Zealand. I wanted to go. Like, I was like, as far away,
as far as you can go. Yeah.
And so I spoke to my parents about it a lot, and they recognized that he really wanted to be outside the country. So what they then did for me was, my cousin was already in Canada. Okay. So they were like, okay, if you're really bent on leaving, because you had already applied to Ghana, had already forced their hand, and so they were like, okay, this boy seems serious. So they were like, all right, we'll give you the opportunity to go to Canada. Okay. Your aunt speaks well of the place. Seems like it'll be fine. Your cousins seem to be doing pretty decent. So we'll give you a chance. And so that's kind of how I discovered Canada. I didn't know the place. I looked it up. I was like, okay, seems decent.
Do it.
I mean, let's do
far
it.
Away from home.
It's far, exactly. It fulfills my criteria. I think we're good. And so my parents got me some of the documents. They helped me out with that. You know, the visa process was pretty straightforward. They found someone who was an immigration consultant at the time. So she did all the application process for us, put together my visa, we paid everything, and then one day they were like, all right, so it appears everything has clicked, you're going to Canada. And I was just like, wow. And relief. Exactly, and that was like, all right, I guess I'm not going to study in Nigeria, this is great. So that was kind of how I...
Awesome. Okay, so now we're at, it's a thing, I'm going, you know, I'm excited. Yeah. What was what were the emotions like? Where were you when it got to that point? Because it's like, I feel like for a lot of people, it's like, I want to go, and it's like, oh, you're going tomorrow, and you're like, I don't know if I want to go that quick. You know, I know I've always wanted to go, but you know, leaving home, you know, being we all get, or most of us get, the boarding school experience, which kind of readies you for living by yourself, but you know, your parents are still a phone call away, or a bus away, or you know, a drive away. But this time you're going across, and you're gone, and it's like, you know, where you having second thoughts, where you like, nah, I just really just want to leave this place, or was it like a mix of both? Was it like comme ci comme ça? Was it good, bad? You know?
Yeah. So the interesting thing was, I had friends who were going with me, so we had like a batch of people. And we all met each other because of the immigration consultant. Okay. And so I was more looking forward to like, oh, I'm going with my friends. You know, like I was meeting people. I was like, and then one of my cousins was also coming with me. Okay. So I was hoping that, okay, you know, it was going to be a bonding experience. I got my cousin. I got a few friends. We're all going on this journey together. And to me, I didn't see any difference.
Were you all going to the same school?
Yes.
Oh,
yes. So it made it even better.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So in my mind, it was like, okay, we're just going to be another boarding school type experience. Kind of.
Yeah.
So I didn't think too much of it. I didn't even think too much that my parents wouldn't be available, because in my mind, if I'm taking the trip, my parents can also one day just be like, I'm going to take a flight and come as well. At least that was my thoughts initially. And so I didn't think too much of it. And I was like, at the end of the day, I can always come back home. And I had a return ticket at the time.
Okay.
So I was like, it's not a big deal. Sorry, we're just going.
Soft.
Exactly.
Soft.
It should be straightforward. That's what I thought at the time.
Okay. Nice. So now you have come. You're here, you know, you're with your friends, which is even way more exciting. Yeah. You know, what was your first impression, like, of, I would say, freedom? Instead of, what was your first impression of, you know, freedom, especially coming from an African background? Like, I definitely know, being by yourself, in the same country is very different from being by yourself in a different country. Because, your African parents, you could be anywhere. As long as you're in the country, they can reach you, they can get to you. But, now you're far away. Even when you call them, the hours are different. It's like, it's a whole different world. What was your first impression of Canada? Were you like, oh my God, this is awesome? Because a lot of people get here and, the culture shock. There's just so many things that are just different. And you have to put all of that together with going to school, and it's like you're going straight into the fire. Some people come, they have a couple days before, Frosh and orientation starts. Some people come and it's like the next day is school. So give us, what were you feeling like? Did you get there? Did you start getting homesick? Give us your first impression of Canada, and how you're feeling about, let's say, a week in.
So like a week in, the first thing I actually really thought about was like, because my parents gave me like USD.
Okay.
When I was coming, so they gave me like $1,000. They're like, okay, you hold on to this until we figure you out, and then you're settled. And hopefully you should be fine for a couple of months, because there was a lot of money in their mind and even in my mind. And so literally the first couple of things I did was like, I just stared at the money for a while. Like I was just like, so this is dollars. this is it.
Right here.
So that was the first thing that was on my mind for a bit, and I didn't get over the shock of it. And then obviously I had to start my banking, all those things. I wasn't too homesick necessarily. My parents were like, your first year, we're not going to pay for your phone. You are not having your phone. You're not. So I was a little worried about how I'd be able to connect with people. But for the most part, it was just all about trying not to get overwhelmed. I came in the summer, lucky for me, so it wasn't very cold.
Okay, nice.
Exactly. So for me, it was just all about getting my bearings, figuring out how bus systems worked. Getting a bus pass. I think that was the initial thing, just like getting over the shock of like, okay, so buses run at time. It's not like you can just wait and anyone will just show up. It was, you had to show up on time when the bus was coming. Stable internet was also a big deal. Like I feel like I binged TV shows for the first bit, because I was like, there is no way that NEPA is not taking lights.
Straightforward.
So that's kind of what I was. I was still like the euphoria of it for the first couple of days.
Okay, so you're here, everything's going good, everything's okay, you're with your friends, so obviously everything's awesome. First week of school, Frosh, right? There's so many things going on, and I definitely know it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. You don't know. First of all, you don't know a lot of people. Obviously, in your case, it's a little bit different because you had a group of friends, but still, you and your friends are just a little group of people in like so many, almost 30,000 students at Carleton University. So, how was Frosh like? Was there anything interesting that happened Frosh? Because I feel like people who really participate, and I know you participated in Frosh later on as a facilitator. But before, the first experience of Frosh, how was it like? Is there anything interesting that happened there that...
So my Frosh was my second year in Canada, because my first year I went to a separate high school. So my Frosh, when I came to Ottawa, because my first time I was in Hamilton, my first year. When I came to Frosh, the immediate shock of it was actually the guys that were helping you move your stuff into res. It was the most overwhelming feeling. I was like, who are these guys? Exactly. I was like,
pop that.
I know that. I was like, oh my god, what's happening? Are they trying to take my stuff? So those guys were a bit much. But after that, it was fine. They were pretty helpful. Obviously, got assigned to different teams. I can't remember my team. It was like Cookie or something like that. The teaching you all the songs. Ottawa U. They teach you to hate Ottawa U. They teach you early. And there was a party as well that they did in Fieldhouse. I cannot remember the night, but there was a party we did at Frosh. And my roommates and I were like, yo, we're all going. You should come through. And that was like, I think that was like the first real time I was like, I'm actually university. And in my mind, it was like, what's this movie? American Pie. That was what I was thinking was going to happen. And I was like, I don't think this is how it is. But it was fun. Like, those were the things that I remember. We also watched a movie downtown. They got us a charter bus, OC Transport, things like that. So Frosh was a really good experience for me. And then obviously I came back as a facilitator the next day.
Nice. Awesome. That's great. So now Frosh is over. The real work starts. School is in it. The courses are hitting hard. 8:30s. Did you find it difficult navigating around? Did you get lost a couple times? Because I definitely did get lost a lot of times, not a couple times even. Is there any interesting stories about that front?
So when my res was Prescott.
Okay.
And I was in engineering, so my building was always Mackenzie, which
Okay.
is right across, straight up. So from the outside it was easy, just walk across. But in the fall when it started getting cold and people started taking the tunnels, now it was like, okay, where's Mackenzie?
Yeah.
And lucky for us, like you could just quickly go, you would go left and go up.
Yeah.
But if you've been to Mackenzie, like the numbering was weird.
Mackenzie's a very weird.
It's a weird, exactly.
No,
So like they had to teach us the 4-letter thing is where like the first one is the floor, the other one is the rooms, and then there's like the chords of it. So that was the initial shock. After that, then going to classes was different. Like you would see people come to class in pajamas.
Yeah.
That was the wildest thing to me. Like people weren't dressing up
to
come to class.
Yeah, man.
So it would be things like that would stun me for the most part. I also chose not to have res with other engineers because I already imagined that engineering guys were not going to be fun.
Yeah.
So I requested specifically, please don't put me with engineers. I want to see other people because I'm going to be spending time with them all the time anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was things like that, like figuring out what your classes were. The math classes again to me were like, this is a joke. Like we've already done this how many times? But the software engineering ones were the ones that were not like a shock to me.
Okay.
And I think that was the first time in my life I was probably like the black kid in class.
Okay.
Because everybody else was white
man.
or brown. Like, like that was it. It was the first time I was like,
okay, I'm the only black person here.
Now, lucky for me, there was one black girl that came and I was like, ma'am, where were you last week? And it turned out like for some reason she was like, oh yeah, usually first week doesn't really count. And I was like, why? She's like, because they're only going to tell you syllabus. Yeah. They're not really doing anything. I was like, oh, well then. But then from there, at least it was 2 of us, so me and this other girl in the class for engineering.
Nice. So during your time at Carleton, were you involved and what, because you're not forced to get involved here. Correct. It's more of something that you have to be willing to do. Now, it's not easy to get involved because you're balancing, being part of clubs, different associations, different societies, and, those societies have a lot of events and a lot of things that if you don't take care, distracts you from your studies. So first of all, why did you make, the step, a bold step, I would say, to, put on that extra load and get involved and get to know people and not just, sulk and be in your own corner and just like be like, no, I don't want to know too many people. It's just too much, What kind of pushed you to decide to be the outgoing guy, to try and, get into different groups, societies, get to meet people? Yeah. Where did that come from?
I don't know where it came from specifically. I think it was already concerning enough that I was the only one in my class. Okay. And I felt like I wasn't getting my social battery charged enough through engineers. I also struggled through school, so I felt like I might as well resort to something I was good at. Engineering was very difficult. Yeah. And I remember my first year struggling through it. And I just felt like, if I'm not even good at school, at least let me be good at friends. Okay. Let me be good at life. Yeah. So I did that. I didn't even know that you had to maintain a certain GPA for co-op. I did not know. And so in my mind, by the time I got to like halfway through the first semester, and I started meeting people, they were not like, oh, if you had come to me, I had the answers to these kind of questions you had. Or people were like, oh, if you're struggling with this course, this is the person to talk to. So once I started to recognize that by meeting other people, they could actually help me with school, it started to make sense. So I started connecting with more people. I met more Nigerians. Obviously, I discovered that there was even a Nigerian Students Association, all those things. And then started meeting Ghanaian Students Association, Jamaican one as well, the Caribbean one, I should say. So all of those people started making it a little easier to survive school. And obviously, even like going to CAF, you'd meet different people, and people would come up to you like, hey, they're like, where are you from? I'm from Toronto. And then you hear someone and they're from Brampton and they're like, where are all these places? So things like that, and it started to get a little easier to actually get through school. I think that was part of why it was just something to feel better about because school was already very hard.
So. Awesome. So take note, networking is very important. As you're going to know from most of the people that I'm going to be interviewing, it's one of the key factors that help them, break the ice and get into societies and get to meet people. And the more you meet people, the more you get connected. That's the more resources are available to you. Agreed. So now I want us to talk about a very gray area where I feel like a lot of people don't talk about as an international student, where everybody thinks, oh, especially from back home or wherever it is you're coming from, going to school and working is not really a thing. It's not really a thing. A couple people may do it, but it's not really a known thing. But then you come over here and everybody has a job, and it's not everybody has a job because they just want to have jobs. Everybody has a job because this country is expensive, and there's so many bills, and it's like you get here and you're like, okay, so I gotta have a job and go to school and be, try to meet people and try to be involved, and if you're a Christian, if you're a religious person, you're going to church, and it's like, oh man, like I didn't know I had to work and go to school. I thought I was here to go to school. So did you have any jobs, or what was your first job as a student or during your process, and how was it like? And were you ready? Had you worked? Had you had the job before then? If it was your first job ever, how was it like? And were you like, oh my God, this is just crazy?
Yeah. So my first year, I didn't have a job because I thought the same way that I'm here for school. Yeah. And my parents were like, no, you're only here for school, so don't worry about it. I recognized that it just wasn't going to be enough. Like the currency exchange just didn't make sense.
Very bad, yeah.
So I toughed it out through first year. Luckily, I had a meal plan so I could eat. Okay. But during the Christmas break, they kick you off campus. Yeah. So I had to stay at my friends, and I just didn't have food. So usually I would just ration things out, and you do the fasting thing. Yeah. I call it getting close to God. But after that, I recognized this wasn't going to be sustainable because once the term ended in April, I had a couple of months until the next term in the fall. So I looked for a job. My first job was at Canada Post. I was a summer student, my first year. And that was a really fun job, I would say. All I had to do was work full time throughout the summer. That's what I did. So I worked full time. Nice. And it paid decently well. So I made enough money that I could save as pocket money for the next term. I think it was like over the summer, it was 4 months. So maybe like all combined, I made maybe like 10 grand. So I was able to save, I think 8, somewhere there about 8, 7, somewhere there about. So I was going to use that to supplement my next year. I also remember that first year, that was my first time having a phone. So I was like, and I had a BlackBerry because that was the whole rave. Yeah. So I could not be folding my hand and not be able to pay my bill. In my mind, I was like, when people were like, what's your pin? And I'm like, it's not, we're not doing that. It's not happening. It was not doing that. So I was like, no, there's no way I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. There's no way I'm not going to be able to have fun, go out, things like that. All the parties that were happening on campus. So that's kind of how it started. And I enjoyed that job, Canada Post. I really did. Then in my third year, I was like, okay, I was moving off campus. Because my first year, second year, I lived on campus, Prescott 2 times. Third year, I was like, I'm going to move off campus. Okay. I actually want to get the full experience now, come to school and what have you. And then rent kicked in, because now my parents are not supplementing that part. So I was like, I'm going to find a job outside of school. Okay. And also keep working through school, and I still kept keeping my summer jobs at Canada Post. So I got a job at Staples. Nice. So I was doing a technology associate job. The way I got that job was even really funny because I was really, really low on money. I'd been sending my resumes everywhere. And so one day I was like, okay, I know technology, I'm in software. That's my course. I walked into the store. I looked around. I looked at the technology. I was empty. So I walked up to the manager. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a job. They're like, oh, what can you do? I'm like, I'm looking for a job as a technology associate. He's like, oh yeah, can you sell me computers? I'm like, yeah, I can sell you right now. And he's like, oh yeah? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, right now, let's do it. And at that time, Windows 7 had just come out. Okay. And I got it, I downloaded it. Carlton gives you access to all the latest software and what have you. So I downloaded it, I knew it inside out. And so right on the spot, gave him a demo of everything. I knew the specs, knew everything. I already knew it. So he was like, come back next Saturday. Nice. And that was how I got my job, straight up. Yeah.
So. That is a very interesting story, and you can see from here that it's not just about having the values, having the sauce, and having the knowledge. It's also about being bold and sometimes doing the courageous thing and putting your foot forward and not being shy, and saying, you know what, I need a job and I'm gonna go talk to this guy and I'm gonna tell him that I know my stuff, and so you have to give me a job, and it worked out. So that is great. So right now, what I want us to talk about is third year. We're about to graduate. Yeah. and it's like, okay, you gotta get a job, steady permits ending. You know, if you want to live in this country, you gotta get a job. It has to be a good job that's in your field, can count towards your hours. You know, because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that part. Everybody, I want to come to Canada, but it's like, man, if you're done and you don't have a job, you're going home. So,
Agreed.
you know, how were you feeling around that time? Were you like, okay, did you have a lot of jobs, you know, at your feet, or were you kind of scrambling and just like sending resumes out everywhere?
Yeah. So towards the end of my 4th year, at this time I switched to selling jewelry.
Okay.
Because that's a separate story.
Okay.
But I switched to selling jewelry at this point, and I was about to come to the end of the engineering thing, and I failed some courses. I actually failed one course, which then delayed some other courses. So I had to spend an extra semester.
Okay.
And so as the semester was now starting, the last one, I was like, okay, I need to apply for a postgraduate work permit. I need to apply for as many jobs as I can. And lucky for me, I was in engineering, which was a booming field. So I was like, okay, I'm going to become a professional job seeker.
Okay.
So there was a tech night that Crowding was hosting, I think in River Building at the time, or is it Loeb? I can't remember the name now. So there was a tech night where all these companies would come to campus. I went to those, dressed up and everything. There were job fairs they'd host in the university center. I'd go to all those.
Okay.
Any job I'd see come up on the Crowding job portal, I'd apply.
Okay.
And then at some point, I started realizing I was being a little complacent, because I would only go for those opportunities and not really check for others. So at one point around Christmas, I was like, okay, I have enough to last till June if I'm careful and I don't spend any money. So I was like, okay, I cannot keep doing these retail jobs anymore. It's not going to work for my postgraduate situation. It's going to work for my PR. So it's a waste. And besides, it's only like, what, $10, $20, $12 an hour or something like that. So the time I can spend applying for jobs and getting ready and going to work, taking a bus, it's a waste of time. So I was going to take the leap and quit my job. I had enough money. So I was like, okay, worst case will be all right. And around that time, you know, I had friends that were like, okay, last we'll drink Gary together. So I quit my job. And then I became a professional full-time job seeker. I was now, and I said, okay, let me switch strategies from just applying to generic jobs. I was only going to apply to jobs where the recruiter's email was specifically listed. So that was my strategy. So I started emailing directly to recruiters. Lucky for me, there was this one guy who responded back and was like, hey, I saw your email. Do you want to have a chat? I was like, most definitely. So he called me, we talked, and he was like, okay, so I'm going to send you in. I think we should come for an in-person interview, see how that goes. I'm not in the country myself, and that was the first time I discovered remote work was a possibility. Like, I'm not in the country myself, but our office is actually in Ottawa. Go into the office and have an interview. We'll talk then.
So what company is this?
This was, at the time, it was called ThinkRap Commerce.
Okay.
It got bought by Pivotry, and it's actually got listed on the TSX.
Okay.
So they're now on the stock market. So at the time, it was called ThinkRap. And they were like, I was like, all right. So I walked in, you know, put my best foot forward, met everyone on the team. They quite liked me. They were like, all right, let's see how it goes. Now, the lucky thing was, when I got hired, I was the first international they hired.
Okay.
So they did not even know how to handle someone with a study permit. And so they were like, we didn't know you had a study permit. And I was like, don't worry, it's the same thing as a regular person. This is all you need to have. I gave them a scanned document of everything. And they're like, oh, your work permit isn't in yet. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I'm on implied status. So I even have to explain the immigration process to them, because they were willing to give me a job, but they didn't know how the process would work.
Handle it. Okay.
And so I give them everything. SIN number is fine. Just don't waste 9. It's fine. There's no big deal. My work permit is coming in soon. It'll be great. And so everything ended up working out. So they gave me a chance, and luckily it worked out.
So I must say, you have, you know, a very impressive, obviously, resume. You got into blogging. You have a podcast. When did these things come into play? Was it, you know, was it something you always thought about during school time, or was it something that you picked up after when you were more, you know, stable? You had a job. Everything was good. You know, obviously, I know you to be a creative person, but you know, maybe share it with our viewers, where, you know, that whole creative side of Tolu. Give them an overview.
Sure. So when I'd been working now for about 2-3 years, finished school.
Okay.
And a couple of my friends were struggling with certain things. And at this point, I think I just finished buying my place,
Okay.
which I was renting out to my friends as well. And a couple of people were curious to how I was doing it, what I had done, like how did you get here where like you can afford to own your own place. I think I was like 23 or 22 at the time. So I'd already bought my own place and it was very strange for a lot of people. And so I was like, I mean, I could just talk about what I do. I could write about it. And at this point, I was just about going to Nigeria.
Okay.
I'm a software developer, so I'm like, I can handle running a website. It's not that difficult. I do this for money anyways. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start writing stories about whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm dealing with, or just share my journey a little bit.
Okay.
So I started to do that. And when I went to Nigeria, there were so many stories of things that were just strange because now I've been in Canada for I think just about 5-6 years. And so now I've left Nigeria.
Okay.
I'm more now in my mental state Canadian than Nigerian.
Yeah.
So I'm going back to Nigeria as a Canadian because in my mind I'm like, I'm going to the banks, I'm going to all these things.
Yeah.
And everything is so strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
No.
This is not the Nigeria.
I just want to tap my card.
Cards don't tap, they don't.
Yeah, no.
So I'm like, okay, I come back to Canada and start writing all about it. I'm like, yo guys, traffic in Lagos.
It's crazy.
This is unbelievable. I drive for hours. Keep in mind, I used to, this was my life.
This is normal to you, but...
So I started to share more about that because now I'd also met other people who weren't Nigerian, who didn't know that side of me.
Okay.
I had met people who weren't Canadian, who obviously in Nigeria, they didn't understand that Canadian side. So I was going to share as much as I could about anything, if anyone was curious to what it's like to be here, either by yourself, figure out credits, things like that, figure out buying a home, figure out what it's like to, rent to someone else, what's that process like, legal systems, immigration systems, things like that. So I was like, it was going to be a huge benefit to someone else if they knew what I had gone through. And keep in mind, because I had done it at such an early age, I felt like there was more, credibility, because I was doing it as opposed to someone else telling you about what it's like of someone else's experience or someone else that is like
you coming from the horse's own mouth.
One of the things I find, especially in my own view, when people tell you how to be a millionaire but they are not, that is stressful to me. Because
if you knew it,
then why aren't you there?
No.
So if I'm a homeowner and I'm showing you how to do it, then I feel like it's easier.
Yeah.
And so things like that, like, okay, maybe I may not be where I want to be, but there are people who also want to be where I am.
Where you are.
So let me share that information. And so I was like, all right, that's how it all started, really.
That is impressive, and it's very good because you have to put your you can see here that Tolu's not just trying to use his gifts, he's trying to use it to help people, and obviously that goes a long way. So Tolu, what would you say throughout your whole process? So right now you've been in Canada for how many years?
This is year 12.
Year 12. That is crazy.
Yeah.
What would you say is your biggest lesson that you've learned? And just to put it in perspective, what if you could speak to Tolu 12 years ago, about to take that first step to get on that plane, what would be the advice or what would be the lesson that you would give to him?
Wow, the biggest. I don't know about the biggest because I think there have been so many contributing factors to all of them. I think one of them would be don't panic.
Okay.
That would be one of them. Like, just don't panic, because there were so many moments throughout my journey in Canada that I was like, I would pause to look back and be like, oh my God, this is huge. Yeah. Right? Like, buying your first place, I remember panicking, like, I couldn't believe it because it was the biggest purchase I'd ever made at the time.
Yeah.
There were moments where I felt like, reach out when you are struggling. It's another one I would say, like, there's nothing anybody is doing that you're the first to do, quite frankly. Okay. Whether it's a startup, whether it's running your own business, whether it's meeting somebody, whether it's networking. You are not the first to come to Canada brand new. You're not the first to live without your parents in a different country. So there were moments where I was a little too scared to ask for help, and I was struggling with something and I just didn't want to talk about it because like I felt like nobody would understand me. Yeah. So I think that would be it. I think just trust people a little bit more. Feel free to ask questions. There's nothing wrong with being stupid. I think there's a huge problem with staying stupid though. Okay. That's probably what it is.
Awesome. Yeah. So as we wrap up, do you have any words? And we have a special question obviously that we ask at the end of the show. But do you have any words for people back home, maybe mom and dad, family members, people from your school? Just feel free and talk to people. Let them know that you're doing awesome. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any word? First of all, love you, mom. No, I think coming to Canada really is not difficult. Just taking that leap of faith is possible. Just go for it. I think stay focused on where you set yourself to be. I think have a vision of where you can be, have a direction, and just go after it and, have fun while you're on the way. Like, this life now on, there's no point of, coming to this life and just struggling through it.
Yeah.
Enjoy some, and get ready for the next level each time and just keep striving for more. I think that's probably my advice. Just enjoy it. It's a journey. Enjoy the view of the way.
Excellent. So before we ask a special question, we're gonna go into the riddle part of the show. So I'm gonna ask you 3 riddles.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not difficult. They're not difficult riddles. They're just we just want to know how you think, man. That's the point of this whole thing.
Okay.
So the thing about the rule about the riddle part is you only have 1 second after I'm done reading the question to give us an answer. So it's the first thing.
What?
The first thing that comes into your head once the question is done, you have to pop it out. So, Tolu, are you ready?
I'm not sure. Is that the question? I think that's the question.
First one. Would you rather go to the past and meet your ancestors, or would you go to the future and meet your great-grandchildren? Future. Would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Hot.
Too hot. And the last one, would you rather be stuck on an island alone or with someone who talks incessantly?
Jesus. Alone.
Okay, viewers, you heard it from the man himself, Mr. Tolu, an accomplished product manager in one of the leading tech firms in the Ottawa region, in the world. This is I Am International, and I am your host, George Owusu-Mensah. Thank you and have a wonderful day.